Aloha, everybody. Welcome to Talk Story Unscripted. Today, I'm sorry. We'll do it again. That's the first time I've ever had to do that. Aloha, everybody. Welcome to Talk Story Unscripted. My name is Pete.
And I'm Doug.
And we have with us today Mario Quezada. Did I say that properly, Mario?
Yeah, that's perfect. Yeah.
Perfect. Now, Mario, you're the creative director of Made X Maker. Did I say that right?
It's actually made by Maker, but that's because it's spelled with an X. But yeah, the X is.
Dude, that's clever. Made by Maker. I love it. That totally makes sense. I figured there's got to be something better than Made X. How are you, Mario?
I'm doing well, guys. How are you?
Good, Mario. It's such a pleasure to meet you, man. You know, I was not too long ago. There's a side note. I was watching Jurassic World: Fallen Kingdom, and I see you. And I'm like, holy cow, I know that guy. And I can't say this to anyone else. And I never have, never will again. I was waiting for you to get eaten by a dinosaur. And I never saw it happen. Did you get eaten? I didn't see.
I was really hoping that they would let me do that, but no, that was not in the cards for that one, but yeah.
Oh, it's such a cool thing in your life to say, I was looking forward to getting eaten by a T-Rex.
I totally was, yeah.
So just as a real quick thing, you know, working on a huge production like that, what was the takeaway that you took from being there?
There's a lot of takeaways. I've been around sets for a long time. I was kind of behind the camera in Los Angeles a lot and doing a lot of directing and things for some ad agencies and stuff. But you take away a lot of things. One is pay attention and do your job. Two is you see how vital everybody's job is. It's kind of like a battleship, you know, it's like everybody's got their one job to do and they're very good at doing that. And you know, that job feeds into another job. And then the other thing is just, you know, God puts us in really interesting places to be a light in amongst the darkness, you know, and it was really cool. And just the way even that scene that you were talking about, that was just happenstance. Honestly, the group of guys that I was with, we just happened to be by the guy who was kind of directing people to that place. And I say happened to, you know, it was all God's will, but,
right.
You know, we just happened to be in the right place at the right time. And he looked around and he's like, hey, you guys go over there and go by the plane. And you guys are going to greet, you know, Chris Platt coming off the plane and stuff like that. And I was like, yep, let's go.
That's awesome.
That's so cool. It's like, make sure when you're in football, you're standing next to the coach, right? When he's looking for a player.
Absolutely.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, that's great. So Mario, you run a branding agency in Honolulu.
Yes.
So what is branding and why is it such a huge deal? You know, branding, do you have like branding irons back in the closet in your office? Or what does this mean?
That is very much where it comes from. The word brand means is kind of what they would do to, you know, they still do it to cattle, obviously, or livestock. And but back in the day of, you know, just ranching and the olden times to put a mark on something was to brand it, right? They would heat up an iron, they would burn the cow or whatever they would do. Even if looking back into like olden, like royal times, they would seal the signet ring and all those things. Those are all kind of like brands, right? So a brand this is such a big question. A brand is really the heart and soul of a company or organization, right? That's what a brand is. What people think a brand is a logo, but that's not necessarily true. So branding in today's modern terms is really the heart and soul of an organization. Yeah. And so I just help people discover that, who they are truly, because some people don't actually always know who they truly are. They know who they are internally, but they don't really know how to communicate that. So I just help them do that.
That's really interesting. You know, you talk about branding cattle. My family still does that.
Right on.
Colorado, we have a cattle ranch, and we were just doing it about 2 weeks ago because I was there for a family situation. So that's cool that you mentioned that.
What you have? Do you have a brand, Doug, on you? Don't show the people.
I've been branded. So when we were working cattle twice, I've been vaccinated and branded. I was holding the calf down. I would probably find a picture of this, and somebody came up with the branding and they tripped and it just nicked me in the elbow.
Oh my goodness.
And I freaked out and I jerked up and a guy was behind me with the vaccine and the needle went right into my arm. Twice.
Man.
Yeah.
That's
so
insane.
Branding is dangerous.
Yeah, seriously.
It can be. But I want to ask you, Mario, I'm just curious because, branding is kind of new to me. How did you get involved in branding?
Well, I went to design school I went to engineering school right out of high school in Los Angeles. And then right quickly after that, I realized I'm not really a fan of physics. So I'm going to do what my passion is, and I'm going to do art and design.
Cool.
So really I went to school for graphic design, and I worked at Disney, and I worked for Warner Brothers. I worked for all the major studios in Los Angeles for many years.
Wow.
And through that, you understand, how to do branding and marketing, and what a company or organization really needs to put that message out. So branding as a thing is a very different understanding of a company than just their visual identity. You have a logo on Doug, that's a Quicksilver logo. You have a logo on your shirt, it says Campus Life. Pete, you have one of the color logos behind you. So a logo is just a representation of a company, whatever it is, but the brand is really that heart and soul. So doing all this work for big agencies and big companies over the years, I really got a good understanding of how to help people understand how to tell others about who they are and what they're about as far as their organization. And then the other part of that, which is what God's been doing, all my life, I've been a youth pastor and I've been young adult pastor. And so I've been doing that for people as well for many, many years, 20 plus years as well. So it's really just the marrying of what God has helped me do for people, for companies. And that's really what's happened.
That's so interesting. So when you're working with a company, what is it that you start with, and what is the outcome that you're wanting to achieve?
Okay. It depends on where the company's at. Some companies are just looking for a visual identity for who they are. My process used to be, before the last few years, I would just say, okay, well, what do you want the logo to represent? What do you want the visual representation of your company to kind of feel like? So I would just start with visually representing their company through a logo or a design or whatever it is. But I started to realize that I was trying to solve a problem that was maybe different than the true problem was. So now what I mainly do is brand strategy. So what I come in and do is I help them through a framework. I help the company through a framework, really understand who they are, what they stand for, and then I help them understand how to tell that story. And if their visual representation of their company, like their logo or their marketing or whatever that is, their front facing, their customer facing marketing materials, whatever, doesn't represent that story, then I help them change that so it best represents that story. So really what I do is I come in and I take them through some kind of a framework to help them really understand who they are as a company, who they are as an organization, and then really get to their, I don't know if you've heard of this concept, but there's a concept that was made popular by Simon Sinek, called, find your why, right? It's the golden circle. It's really about like why you exist. And it's really about the deeper purpose of a company. Working with religious organizations and churches for many, many years, you have a really good idea of who you are and what your purpose in life is, because we talk about purpose in the Christian circle a lot, but companies can't really put a finger on that. Even though they have a deeper purpose or a bigger purpose beyond making money, they're not really sure what that is. So I help them discover that.
That's great.
Wow. That's a big job.
Yeah, it is. It is a big job.
It can be, yeah.
Yeah. So branding, I love what you say, that it's about heart and soul of the company. And then of course, applying that to a believer in Christ. Well, that speaks volumes, right? And so,
Yeah.
as a follower of Christ, for those maybe are who are still trying to work out who they are in Christ, how does that play out? Do you see that as an issue? And if applying what you do with companies, how does that work for a believer?
Um, it's almost backwards. I've helped more people discover really what their purpose and calling is in Christ, and I've actually applied that to the strategy for companies. So it's almost a backwards thing. So it's not really what I do for companies, and I can apply it to individuals. It's like really all the work that I've done with young adults and youth through the years to help them really discover their purpose in Christ and their purpose in this world. I've kind of adopted some of that to work with companies in a very secular way, if they're a secular company. I also do like private coaching for mainly for believers, but so like business coaching and things where I'm weaving in spiritual concepts and kind of helping them translate their purpose through their business to how they operate, right? So it's really I'm borrowing from my mentoring and my discipleship know-how to apply that to companies, and it's made some really cool, like radical results. When I go in and I'm like, I'm asking certain questions, their eyes light up and they really realize that they have a deeper purpose than just selling whatever widget it is they're selling. And they realize that their calling to the marketplace is much deeper than, even if they're a secular company, especially when I can help them unveil that. And it's just really, it's all inside them, but it's helping them realize that in their marketplace. It's pretty astonishing what happens.
That's great. It sounds like you're teaching people how to express what the business is, what the company is.
Absolutely.
And so I see what you're saying. Like, when you're doing ministry and you're teaching people how to express who they are in Christ, it's the same thing. That's really awesome. I love that. So what about, in general, I'm not talking Christians, I'm talking about the human race, every one of us,
Okay.
right? So then us individually, we have a brand. There should be an identity, a corporate. So when someone looks at me, they should be able to see who I am. And that's visually, but it's more importantly, it's my actions and reactions. Would that be right?
Yeah, I think this is the way I kind of help people understand it. Your brand is really your heart and soul. And you can't really see your heart and soul, Pete, but I can see how you express that with people, right? So if I'm around you, I will know what Pete's brand is. If I'm around you, if I'm around your family and I'm around how you conduct yourself at business and in social circles or social settings, I can see what your brand is about and how you conduct yourself. Same thing with Doug. I can tell how he expresses himself with his brand through what he wears, through how he acts, through his emotions, and I can help him see. I can see how he expresses that through what he does. A few years ago, John Honold did a sermon, and he called it Head, Heart, Hand. Right? It's think, feel, and then do, and that's what I help people do. I help them realize and understand who they are, know who they are inside, and then help them express that is the outward expression of who they are. So visually is just the outward expression of the inward person, right? So that's kind of a better way to help me understand or help me explain that to other people. Does that make sense?
Yeah,
absolutely. Yeah, and
that's
it's
great.
almost like you have to ask the right questions, right, to get to that. I can definitely that's amazing. I want to ask, we're looking at some of your Instagram posts and whatnot, and awesome stuff that you have on there. But one thing that stands out to me is that you seem very driven. Where does this drive of yours come from?
There's many places where it's propelled from. My drive comes from Christ, him alone. He's the reason why I do anything. He's the reason I can be a dad, I can be a father, I can be a husband, I can be a business owner. He's the reason I have any influence over anyone. And so God is where I get everything, right? And where we get everything. He's our soul of inspiration. Why I do what I do is for my family, and to perpetuate God's name as well. I prayed years ago to have more influence in some way in order that I might share God more. And I've been able to, through Instagram, which is just it's a secular medium, it's social media, it's whatever it is, I've been able to meet people all over the world and have intense, deep conversations with them that at some point reveal Christ to them through a conversation. And I've had people all over the world crying in front of me in a Zoom call or whatever it is, not on purpose, just because I'm helping them kind of see a little bit more about who God is, whether they believe in God or not. And it's become an evangelistic tool, and it's really exciting. So
that's so cool, man. And along with having that evangelistic and driven side of yours, you have very creative work as well. I wanted to ask you, how does God inspire you in your creativity?
How does he inspire me in my he uses everything and anything to inspire me. I think I've been around the world. I've seen a lot of things. I've done a lot of like mission work in Nepal, and I've done, I've toured Europe to on honeymoon and, just on vacation. And I think the one thing that within myself that I've always kind of known since I've been saved is everything beautiful comes from Christ, right? Everything in this world that is an expression of beauty comes from God, because he is the creator, right? So anything I see in the world that is beautiful, it doesn't matter what it is, I can point to Christ and say that is only beautiful because Christ has allowed it to be beautiful, and it comes from him, right? So I'm inspired by everything, music, and I don't know if you guys have been in a place of a certain emotional state, whether it's happy, sad, whatever it is, and there's a song that comes on. It could be a secular song, it could be any song, but God's going to use that song to minister to your heart.
Absolutely.
Well, God does that on the regular with me, with people, with creativity, with design, with with podcasts, whatever it is, just because that's my outlet. You guys may have different outlets. My former pastor Waxer, has a very specific outlet that he has. He has a pulpit he shares from, and so anything that he gets inspired by, he's inspired to share through that medium, right? So This is just my avenue to share who Christ is and how he is. So that's great. Anything that he does is going to translate itself in that way for me.
That's so good, man.
And I love, I looked at your Instagram page, and there was one thing that you put on there, and it was, I quit. And that was very relative for today. I mean, I think there's a lot of people that are feeling that, but I loved when I scrolled through your pages and I thought, oh, this is great. And what you were quitting from, and I'm not going to reveal it here. You guys who are watching this, you guys need to go check it out. And his Insta handle is there on the screen. And but it's really, really good. And I think I love what you're saying, that I don't know, maybe it's because of the speed of the world we're living in right now. Lots of times we just don't stop to really think about those hard questions, and really realize who we are as people and so forth. And I think that's caused a lot of identity issues in the world today. To me, I just feel like there's a lot of confusion. And what do you think about that? Do you feel that that's an issue, that people are not stopping and thinking about who they are and what they represent?
I honestly think people think about that a lot, but with no tangible start to that whole thing. And what I mean by that is, in the beginning, God, right?
Mm.
with no anchor there in the beginning, then searching to find yourself becomes this sea of this abyss of nothingness, right? Because
Wow.
you keep looking internally to look for something that is not there, right?
Yeah.
Because you don't know where you've come from. You've been told your whole life you've come from, goo
Yeah.
and animalistic tendencies, and you've been told your whole life you're an animal. So what good is in you
Mm.
if you've been told that your whole life, and you do soul searching and you're not really sure what your soul is?
Yeah.
How can you really search it out? And I'm not saying that God doesn't do miracles in that place. I've met people all the world over that have had crazy, just like, dreams about Christ, telling them to follow him when they had no idea who he was.
Wow.
And so God does use that. But to be introspective for the secular person, I think it's really hard, because you can search and search and search, but then you keep searching out externally to find validation inside. When you're not really sure who you are, it's really hard for people to understand that. I'm not sure if I answered that question.
No, I love that. I like you said, it's and I think that's what I'm thinking about the world right now. I feel like there's a lot of things that are not anchored. And, as a
Yeah.
believer, we're anchored in Christ. So we have a starting point, so to speak. And there are a lot of people who don't have that. And yeah, I love that. That's great. Yeah.
That is good, man. And I want to ask you, we only have time for one or two more questions. What would you say, Mario, to those out there, and this can be a double question, those who are looking for their identity, first of all, that's a pretty big question, but also for those in the graphic design world that are curious about it, that's their passion. What words of advice would you give to those who are trying to pursue that as a career, and those who are looking for who they are, their identity?
Those are two very different questions. Two very, very, very different questions. But I'll speak to the design one first, if I can. So as far as graphic design, if that's something that you're very passionate about, if that's something that you're excited about, learn all you can. And this is the same for anything that you're excited about or interested in. It doesn't have to be graphic design. Just replace graphic design with anything. If you're interested in horses, or you're interested in, you're interested in broadcasting, whatever it is, go out and learn everything you can about that thing that you're passionate about. Because on the road to discovering more about that subject, you're going to really find your place in that world. Graphic design is a very big industry, and there's multiple facets to it, and there's multiple expressions of it, and there's multiple industries that it affects. In fact, it probably affects every industry in the world. So upon your investigation of everything that it is, learn the right way to do stuff, learn your typography, learn, what shapes mean, and learn what color theory is, learn all that stuff, but really learn about what it is in a global sense, and then really do a cross check and, like, what you're passionate about. Are you passionate about horses? Are you passionate about, I don't know, Legos, whatever it is, and marry that with what you want to do for your job. And you're going to find some really special places to do things, to do that job there. And then the other question was finding yourself. So if you're really in a place of introspection, and I think that I'll talk to the Christian audience. If you're really in a place of introspection, there's a couple ways to go about it. Seek out a mentor. If you have access to somebody who is a little further along in their journey with Christ than you, that's a great place to look. I've been a mentor to many people. If there's a coach that can do the same thing, so the coaching and mentoring is slightly different. But if there's a coach that is around, like a life coach or a Christian kind of discipleship program that you want to go through, that's a great way to really kind of distill down your purpose and really figure out who you are and what you're meant to do on this earth. At the end of the day, we're all children of God, and understanding that too, that I'll say we are all Christians are children of God, and understanding who you are in the kingdom is vital to you understanding what you can do here on earth to perpetuate that, which is our calling, right? So,
Right.
And I think it's remarkable what you can do or what you can understand, what you can do in the world to further the name of Christ. I'm using, and if you look at my Instagram, and I'm just going to use that as an example, it's somewhat secular. There's not too much mention of God or Christ, although I do mention it. I do mention him by name. But it's really about like pulling people into a common conversation so that I can speak about Christ. And God's using that thing. And for some people, it might be, it might be being a professional, sports person or hockey player, whatever it is. But God's going to give you a platform to speak from, and really, what are you going to say? And understanding that is vital.
That's so good.
Hey, Mario, thanks so much for joining us here at Talk Story Unscripted. I do have one question. I'm throwing us in. So what's your brand, if you could describe that? And I'm not talking about your company, Made by Maker. That's so cool, by the way. I feel like a total idiot, though. Made X Maker.
No, it's
Made by Maker. Okay.
So everybody says it that way until I tell them why.
And I love that. I think that's really great. So Mario, how would you describe your brand, who you are?
Okay. So my brand is strength in encouragement, strength in humility, and strength in Christ. And so that's
awesome.
I kind of anchor everything through that. Both of my kids have some version of strength in their name. One of their names will always, there's some thread of strength through there, and that's just something that God had given me, that he's gonna make strong the children, of my wife and I, and they're gonna be strong. And there's people kind of misunderstand strength for big monstrous men or women that they can lift a lot of weight, which I think that's important. I think you need to take care of what God's given you, but to be strength in humility and strength in encouragement, I think is what people need, and they need to hear that.
It's interesting because we were actually going through a devotion here in the office, and we were going through the Beatitudes, and those first 3 or 4 lines that Jesus points out, he talks about being meek, those who are poor. It's a hard one to go through and to recognize, wow, this is who we need to be. And it's all about strength, but it's in control. That's what's amazing about that.
Well, I love it too when you say that. And I'll close with this. It reminds me of when Solomon was building the temple, and there was 2 pillars, and one was named He Establishes, and the other one was In Him Is Strength. And I love that you imprint that onto your kids' names. That's so cool, Mario. I love that, man. Mario, it's been a pleasure to talk with you. Thank you so much for joining us. And for those of you who are watching, if you want to learn more about Mario, please check out the link that's on the screen, and leave a comment below. We'd love to hear from you. And we'll see you guys next time on Talk Story Unscripted.
Aloha.
Thanks, guys.
Hey, don't forget to subscribe to Talk Story Unscripted. Hit that notification bell, and don't forget to share it with all your friends on social media.